177 is where we finished.
You're going to start.
We're going to start in 177. Okay. Yeah, that's correct. Okay, thank you. So 177 sets us on a new direction, if you will, or new set of principles and ayat, and they require a lot of focus. You remember the previous section we discussed the change of the direction of the Qibla, right? And we discussed also what the Jewish community made of commentary on this, saying that if the Muslims' prayer was correct before the change of the Qibla, then their prayer now is incorrect, and as such it's not acceptable. And if their prayer in the past was if their prayer now is acceptable, then their prayer in the past is unacceptable. So they want to play God against God, as if Allah, God forbid, doesn't know where to direct Muslims to pray, or Muslims are fabricating things. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answered all of those claims, and we talked about this in the previous section. Here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us in the new section, ayah number 177, لَيْسَ الْبِرَّ أَن تُوَلُّوا وُجُوهَكُمْ قِبَلَ الْمَشْرِقِ وَالْمَغْرِبِ. Righteousness is not necessarily about turning your faces east or west, but righteousness is about the one who believes in Allah and the latter day. مَنْ آمَنَ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ وَالْمَلَائِكَةِ, the angels, and the books and the prophets, and وَآتَ الْمَالَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ, he brought the money to spend all the way to the poor and the needy. ذوي القربى واليتامى والمساكين وابن السبيل, he took money and reached out with his money to those recipients, the relatives, the orphans, the destitute, the wayfarer, and the beggars. وفي الرقاب, and he also used his money to set slaves free. وأقام الصلاة, and established prayer. وآتى الزكاة, and he paid the zakah. وَالْمُوفُونَ بِعَهْدِهِمْ. The word آتى in Arabic is much more than just paying zakah. آتى means he took the zakah all the way to the recipients, brought it to the recipients. This is the issue, okay? So he's not sitting, he's wealthy and he's sitting and he's waiting for the poor to come. He is seeking them out and he is reaching out to them. آتى, it means that he brought the help to the needy. وآتى الزكاة وَالْمُوفُونَ بِعَهْدِهِمْ إِذَا عَهَدُوا, and those who fulfill their promises and keeping their covenants. وَالصَّابِرِينَ فِي الْبَأْسَاءِ وَالضَّرَّاءِ وَحِينَ الْبَأْسِ, and those who are patient at harmful and difficult times, and at the time they face their enemies. أُولَٰئِكَ الَّذِينَ صَدَقُوا, those are the ones who are truthful. وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُتَّقُونَ, and those are the pious ones. Let us take this ayah, which is quite a long ayah, almost 30% of a whole page, 5 lines, and break it down to its elements. What is this ayah telling us? This ayah is telling us that righteousness, and here righteousness is an act, right? But the ayah is saying righteousness is one who believes in Allah. Righteousness now is defined as a person, because this person resembles and exhibits all of the great qualities in his behavior, in his character. That's why he, the person, is called righteousness. ليس البر أن تولوا وجوهكم قبل المشرق والمغرب. Righteousness is not just turning your face east or west. Mind you, turning the face of the people in the early community was from the north to the south. because this ayah came down in Medina, and in Medina the change of Qibla happened. Medina is in between Jerusalem, which is north, and the Kaaba, which is south. But the ayah is saying righteousness is not to turn your face east or west. To make it clear that it is not about the direction, it is about the person. It is about the heart of the believer. It is about the act of the believer. It is about how the believer deals with money, how the believer deals with God, how the believer deals with prayer, how the believer deals with zakah, how the believer deals with orphans, with the widows, with the destitute, with the poor. This is what righteousness is about. So it says, instead, righteousness is he who believed in Allah and the angels and the day of judgment and the books and the prophets. So he believes in what? Allah, the day of judgment, the angels, the books and the prophets. We know what it means to believe in Allah, and I want you to share with me, what do you think what it means to say I believe in Allah? What do you think it means? I'm asking. Anyone? When we say we believe in Allah, what do we mean? That we believe, number one, in His existence, right? We believe in His presence in our life. We believe in His power and control and dominion, right? We believe in His power to create, in His power to control, in His power to guide, in His power to execute His will, right? So when we say we believe in Allah, it means all of the above plus so many other things. We believe that He is one, not just anyone, but He's a unique one. We believe that He is the only God and the only one who created the whole universe without helpers, without associates, without partners. So if He has done all of this without help, then when we worship Him, we do not associate with Him any partners or equals, because He used none to create this whole magnificent universe. So when we believe in Allah, we also believe in His word. We believe in His guidance. We believe that we must follow Him. We believe that He is the first and He is the last. He is the beginner of this universe and He is the one who will conclude it. Everything will die except Allah. Every living thing will die, but Allah will outlast everybody, outlive everything in His creation. We believe that there is nothing like unto Him. No equals, no partners, and no similars. No similars. Nothing is similar. So we should never compare Him with anything or anyone. Likewise, He is superior to all of His creation. He is a stand-alone being that we cannot comprehend 100% fully. We can understand what He expects of us. We understand the qualities and holy names He delineated to us, He communicated to us. We understand the powers He told us about Himself. But there are things about God that we do not understand fully, is a key word. Like, we don't know how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creates from nothing. Can anybody explain this? We don't know how He puts the soul or the spirit into a dead mud and turn it into a living human being. Could anybody explain this? So there are things about what Allah does that we could never explain how. Even when Ibrahim asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and told him, show me how do you bring the dead to life? Allah asked him back, haven't you believed? He said, I have, but I want my heart to be content. I want to see it. So in his question, he didn't ask Allah, show me if you create the dead from the living from the dead? He said, I would like to see how you create the dead, the living from the dead. And Allah told him, haven't you believed? He said, I have, but I want my heart to be contact. I want to see it for myself. So he tells him, Ibrahim, take 4 birds and cut them into small pieces and throw those pieces on the top of the mountain and call them back. They will come to you running. Ibrahim did, and the birds came back running, but did he see how they became alive again? Did he see it? So there are things that Allah does that He wants to keep secret from us to test our faith in His power and His abilities. Okay? So this is part of what it means to believe in Allah. Okay? It also means that we believe in what He promises and what He warns against. When He tells us that thing is bad for you, we believe it and we follow it. When He says the shaitan is your enemy, we better believe it and we better take the shaitan for the enemy he is. When He tells us that there are humans that are as devilish like the devil, shayateen al-ins, we believe him and we monitor, so that if we see somebody acting like shaitan, inviting us to do evil stuff, inviting us to kill or maim or do anything against any human being who is innocent, then we should take notice and remember that Allah told us that shaitan is our enemy. Very important. Okay? We know that the ultimate source of knowledge is Allah. The ultimate source of help is Allah. He is the one that Ibrahim defined, saying, الذي خلقني فهو يهدين. He is the one who created me, and He is the one who would guide me. والذي هو يطعمني ويسقيني. It is He who feeds me. It is He who gives me water to drink. Okay? And وإذا مرضت فهو يشفيني. If I become sick, it is He and only He who gives me cure. Very important part of our faith, to believe that Allah is the one who gives us relief when we are stuck with any difficulty under any circumstances. Very important. وَإِن يَمْسَسْكَ اللَّهُ بِضُرٍّ فَلَا كَاشِفَ لَهُ إِلَّا هُوَ. If Allah afflicts you with anything harmful, no one will give you relief but Him. That is also part of our faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, as you could see, the word we believe in Allah is very involving. It has lots of meanings and it has lots of implications. What are the implications? وَإِذَا سَأَلْتَ فَاسْأَلِ اللَّهِ. If you ask Allah. وَإِذَا اسْتَعَنْتَ فَاسْتَعِنْ بِاللَّهِ. If you seek help, seek it from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This also becomes part of our faith in Allah. Our faith in Allah also requires that we believe that no one else does for us what Allah does for us. No one can and no one does. So Allah is the only one who is the source of guidance. No one's guidance could be compared to His guidance. So I should look at His word for the ultimate source of guidance. I should not give priority or precedent for any source next to His word. Next to His word, even nobody but the teachings He taught Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and this is where the Sunnah comes in. The Sunnah is the teachings Allah has given Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam besides the Quran. So the Quran is revealed by Allah. The Sunnah is also revealed to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is only phrased by the words chosen by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but the Quran is a revelation, words text and the whole content is from Allah. The Sunnah, the substance is from Allah, but the verbalization, the phraseology, the words are worded by the Prophet ﷺ. That's a major difference between the Quran and the Sunnah. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةِ, He is referring to the book, and Al-Hikmah is the way of the Prophet ﷺ, which is the ultimate wisdom in living as Muslims. So the first quality of righteousness is to believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The second one is, and to believe in the latter day, al-yawm al-akhir, that there is such a thing as a day of judgment. And it's called the latter day because there is no day after that. The sun will quit rising, and there will be no night and no day. It is a different life, and it is eternal. It is as eternal as Allah wants it to be. You ask me, how long will we stay in paradise? How long people will stay in hellfire? I tell you, until Allah wills otherwise. إِلَّا مَا شَاءَ Allah. Everything is up to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, the belief in the hereafter is very central to the Muslim. Why? Because on the one hand, it is the final day where all humanity will be resurrected and will be brought before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the final judgment. It means something important, that any judgment that people judge each other in this life is never the final judgment. Maybe I like you and I say a good stuff about you, but maybe you're not worth it. Maybe you think very highly of somebody, right? But it is not true. It's only a perception. Maybe you judge somebody in the worst of light, but in the eyes of Allah, he's a great person. So we should never take our judgment as the final or the ultimate judgment. Allah's judgment is final. Allah's judgment is the ultimate judgment. If He's happy with you, you shouldn't care what people say or do. So, the Day of Judgment is a huge event before which signs of the coming of the hour will be displayed for us, and most of the minor signs of the Day of Judgment have already happened. Most of the minor signs have already happened. Basically, most contemporary scholars are saying that what we are waiting are only the major signs of the coming of the Day of Judgment, like the coming back of Isa alayhi salam, the Masih al-Dajjal, the false Messiah. All of those signs, the final sign will be when the sun rises from the west instead of rising from the east. That change, that switch of where the sun comes from is going to be the last judgment, the last sign of the Day of Judgment, after which no repentance will be accepted. حتى تطلع الشمس من مغربها, until the sun rises from the west, your tawbah is going to be acceptable. So the belief in Allah, the belief in the latter day, which is the Day of Judgment, and the belief in the angels. What does it mean to believe in the angels? We believe in the angels as creatures of Allah, unlike what the pagan and idol worshippers thought of them. They describe angels as females, beautiful females, and stuff like this. That has nothing to do with reality. So all the images and the pictures you see are not supported either by the Bible or by the Quran. Even the Bible talks against this. Okay? So angels are creatures that are created from light. And when we say light, we're not saying electricity, and we're not saying sunlight. We're saying light in the general term. What kind of light? God knows. But this is how they are described in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. They are creatures that do not have free will, and as such they don't have choices. They do and execute Allah's will and never disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Very important to know that they are compelled to be obedient and they do not have free will. Unlike us humans and jinns, we do have our own free will, but the angels do not have a free choice. They are always engaged in the praise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Some of them are dedicated around the throne of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Every time, every day, 70,000 angels, we are told in the hadith, revolve in praise of Allah around the throne, and they finish and they don't come back again. And 70,000 more, 70,000 more. If you imagine, the only replica of this is the tawaf that Muslims do around the Kaaba on earth. That they keep making tawaf around the Kaaba as a show of submission and acceptance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and a show of worship and glory that they give to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The angels also are assigned certain tasks, like the angel that blows into the fetus to turn it from a piece of blood into a living human being. There is also what is called the angel of death, and according to most scholars, it is not one angel of death, but the chief angel of death is called the angel of death, but more angels are there to do one and the same thing. Okay? Like the angel who would blow in the horn on the day of judgment, one blow he will do and every living thing will die. The other blow, every dead thing that was alive will be brought back to life. ونفخ في الصور فصعق من في السماوات والأرض إلا ما شاء ربك ثم نفخ فيه أخرى فإذا هم قيام ينظرون. So it's two blows. One blow they will be put to death. The other blow, every dead thing that was alive will be brought back and be gathered before Allah for account and responsibility for what they have done. Some of the angels around the throne, we are told in Surah Ghafir, that they are engaged both in the praise of Allah and in prayer and supplication and dua for the believers. They ask Allah to forgive us and to accept our good deeds and to gather us with our righteous members of our families. You read this in Surah Ghafir, وَيَسْتَغْفِرُونَ لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا رَبَّنَا وَسِعْتَ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ رَحْمَةً وَعِلْمًا فَاغْفِرْ لِلَّذِينَ تَابُوا وَاتَّبَعُوا سَبِيلَكَ وَقِهِمْ عَذَابَ الْجَحِيمِ. Protect them from the torment of hellfire. Those prayers are done by the angels who are designated and engaged in the praise of Allah 24/7. They only cut their praise of Allah to pray for the believers. That's all what they do. Besides the fact that the Quran tells us they are carrying the throne of Allah, and we do not imagine, nor should we imagine, a physical throne as we think of a king and a throne and a chair and all of that. But it should be left for what it will be. So to believe in Allah, to believe in the latter day, to believe in the angels, and to believe that they have functions. Mostly, they are only doing what Allah tells them to do, and they never disobey Allah. After that, the belief in the books. All the books that Allah has given to any prophet at any time, Muslims must believe in. So all what Allah told us in the Quran that was given to any specific prophet, we believe in. But we don't know any more than that. So Allah spoke to us about Suhuf Ibrahim wa Musa. He talked to us about the Torah. He talked to us about David getting the Zabur. And the Zabur is not exactly the Psalms, because the Psalms are not really dictated by Dawood alayhi salam. Okay? The Psalm is one of the books of the Old Testament, and it is written by authors, not necessarily dictated by Dawood himself. Like all other books of the Old and New Testaments, they do not see any link between them and the respective prophets who received them. Okay? And that's why we don't have the Injil of Isa. We have the Injil according to Mark, Matthew, Luke, Paul, Peter, but we do not have the Injil of Isa himself. This is the Injil that the Quran is talking about. وَآتَيْنَاهُ الْإِنْجِيلِ. The Injil, which is the book that was given to who? Isa alayhi salam. So when we say we believe in the books, this definitely will include the Torah, the Injil, and definitely the Quran. Does this mean that we accept the Injil as we have it today, or the Bible, the Old Testament and the New Testament as they are between these two covers? Even Christians and Jews do not agree as to what belongs to these books and what doesn't. They call the four Bibles that they put together as canonical Bibles or Gospels. Why? Because the church agreed to put them together as the substance of what the Bible is. But they are written hundreds of years after Isa alayhi salam. It is not during his generation. So when we say we believe in the books and somebody says, that means you believe in the gospel, right? But how come you believe in the Bible and at the same time you say it has been corrupted, it has been modified, it has been changed? Well, the story is like this. Allah entrusted the people of the book to keep their books, but they did not keep it. They did not write it. If you show Musa or Isa the book that is, written as we have them today, they would not understand what it is talking about. They would recognize very few statements as their own. But the rest, it is stories upon stories upon stories that the authors thought they captured the mission and the ministry of the respective prophets. So whatever Paul or Mark or Matthew or John or Luke have written, it is their story about their prophets. And to rest assured that what I am telling you is not a Muslim's understanding, read the first few verses of the book of Luke, the Gospel according to Luke, which is the last Gospel to be written. It says in the beginning that I found it also appropriate for me, according to my investigation, to give you, my friend Theophilus, the orderly account of what happened with Isa alayhi salam. So it is his investigation of what transpired in a generation that he didn't live to see. So he heard stuff and he read books that were written before him and he came up with his own conclusion based on his investigation. So if he doesn't say this is from God, why should we say to him or to his writing that it is from God? He doesn't claim that. And if the rest of the Bible authors were to write similar frank account of what they have done, it will be similar. None of them claims this is what God told me. None of them. But this Luke was so frank and open that he told us on what basis did he come up with his book. It is an orderly account for what he could collect because of his own investigation that would reflect the mission and the ministry of Isa alayhi salam. So our faith in the books can be summarized in three ways. Number one, if anything in one of these books is consistent with the Quran, we accept it as we accept the Quran. If anything contradicts the Quran, we reject it as interpolation because it is contrary to what we believe to be authentic and authoritative. Okay? If something is mentioned in one of these books that is neither consistent nor contrary, we leave it at that. We neither reject it nor do we consider it part of our faith. So the Quran as described in the Quran itself is our criterion by which we judge. Where do we stand? So we do not have an overall stance that we take from the Bible as a whole or the Old Testament as a whole. Our stance is about topics and subjects and issues mentioned based on their agreement or disagreement or neutrality in contrast to what is mentioned in the Quran. Is this clear? Am I putting you to sleep? Huh? So, if I am, let me know. You're being put to sleep? You came late anyway. He knows. He knows. Okay. So we believe in Allah, the Day of Judgment, the angels, the books, and the prophets. So you will find in these books names of prophets that are not mentioned in the Quran. Well, the Quran has a position for that. The Quran tells the Prophet ﷺ, منهم من قصصنا عليك من قبل ومنهم من لم نقصصهم عليك. Some of these prophets we have told you about and some we have not told you about. So anyone that is listed as a prophet in the Old Testament or the New Testament that is not mentioned in the Quran, you don't have to believe that he was a prophet, but you cannot reject it either. So you leave it as is. You leave it as is. Okay? How many prophets are listed by name in the Quran? About 25 prophets are mentioned by name. Okay, so after telling us what righteousness of faith is, the ayah is going to tell us what righteousness is in action. وَآتَ الْمَالَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ. And the ones who bring forth the money to the needy and the orphans and relatives and the destitute, all of those categories, despite their love for money. Very important that you do not spend only what you do not like, but you spend from that which you love. In Surah Al-Imran, Allah says, لَن تَنَالُوا الْبِرَّ حَتَّى تُنْفِقُوا مِمَّا تُحِبُّونَ. You will never reach a full point of righteousness until you spend from that which you love the most. In Surah Al-Baqara, inshallah, when we come to the end, it will tell us, وَلَا تَيَمَّمُوا الْخَبِيثَ مِنْهُ تُنْفِقُونَ وَلَسْتُمْ بِآخِذِيهِ إِلَّا أَن تُغْمِضُوا فِيهِ. Meaning, do not put on the side food that you don't like, or things that you don't like, or clothes that have worn out, and say, I'm going to spend charity. The Quran says, until you spend from that which you love the most. حَتَّى تُنْفِقُوا مِمَّا تُحِبُّونَ. So here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, and He provided money, despite the love of their money, to the kin, which is ذوي القربى, relatives, the orphans, al-yatama, the destitute, al-masakin, and the wayfarer, ibn al-sabil, was-sa'ilina, and the beggars, those who ask for help, and وَفِي الرِّقَابِ, meaning to set free a slave or a POW at your expense, or to ransom somebody from execution. Let us say somebody is judged as a retribution because he killed someone, and the killer doesn't have money to pay the ransom, but he wished that somebody would help him. If you pay the ransom and it's acceptable by the family of the deceased, the murdered, then that also is setting a slave free. You save a human life. Then in terms of righteousness, in terms of ibadah, worshipping, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَأَقَامَ الصَّلَاةِ, and He established prayer. وَآتَ الزَّكَاةِ, we explained it before. وَالْمُوفُونَ بِعَهْدِهِمْ إِذَا عَاهَدُوا. What is the مُوفُونَ بِعَهْدِهِمْ? It is those who fulfill their obligations and requirements and covenants. What is the biggest covenant that we Muslims have made? The most serious covenant is the commitment of Islam. When you say La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah, this is the most serious covenant you have engaged in. What does it mean? You are committing your life, your soul, your resources, your money, your time, and your effort to be a submissive servant to Allah. This is what the Shahada means. This is the biggest covenant that on which Allah will hold us accountable on the Day of Judgment. And this ayah captures the vast majority of issues that we need to fulfill as part of this covenant. Our obligation towards Allah, our obligation towards people around us of different types, classes, categories, right? And our obligation towards ourselves to save ourselves from hellfire, which is like prayer, zakah, sawm, and hajj. So this is a composite of what the covenant, the most important covenant is in our deen. Then after those who fulfill their covenant requirements, وَالصَّابِرِينَ فِي الْبَأْسَاءِ, those who are patient at harsh, difficult times. وَالضَّرَّاءِ, and at times when harm is befalling everybody, like people in the Battle of Uhud. They saw that 70 people were killed, but they were still fighting. They did not run away. This is صابرين في البأساء والضراء. And then what? وحين البأس, at the time of meeting their enemies in the battlefield, they do not run away. أولئك الذين صدقوا, those are the ones who are truthful. وأولئك هم المتقون, and those are the ones who are full of piety and full of observance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Any question about this ayah? This is just ayah 177. Any question? Do you mind if I ask you questions? Huh? Yes. Okay. How about those who don't mind? Do you mind if I ask you questions? It's not going to be difficult ones. Just a general open-ended question. What do you learn from this ayah? What did you learn from this ayah? What is taqwa? What is righteousness? Thank you. And what are the elements of taqwa that you learned today? Believe in Allah, in Malaika, in the last day, yes, yes. Huh? Believe in the Day of Judgment, okay. Believe in the angels and the books, very good. In the prophets, thank you. What else? We counted the elements of belief. What else? Yes. Believe in science? Science. To believe in science. Science. The measure science of the Day of Judgment. Yes. Okay. Good. Very good. Okay. Yes, to give money to the orphan and the destitute, the masakin, and the relatives. Yes. The wayfarer. The people who ask for help. And then, in terms of worship, to pray, to give zakah. What else? Fulfill your ahd, your covenant. Very good. You're coming very well. Okay. What else? Yes, those who are patient. Okay. الصابرين في البأساء والضراء وحين البأس. What else? That's it. أولئك الذين صدقوا. Those are the ones who have come all the way to become truthful. Truthful in what way? They are truthful in their following the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They have fulfilled all the requirements. Okay? Thank you very much. Okay, let's go to ayah number 178. Here the ayah is talking about a legal issue. O you who believe, كتب عليكم القصاص في القتلى. Retribution has been prescribed for you in matters of murder. الحر بالحر والعبد بالعبد والأنثى بالأنثى فمن عفي له من أخيه شيء فاتباع بالمعروف وأداء إليه بإحسان. When is إقامة 8:45? واتباع إليه بإحسان ذلك تخفيف من ربكم ورحمة فمن اعتدى بعد ذلك فله عذاب أليم. Here the ayah is saying, O you who believe, it has been prescribed for you to exercise retribution regarding the qatla. People before Islam, when a family or a tribe, person from one tribe kills another person from another tribe, and the other tribe whose person was murdered, if they have the power, they go and pillage and kill as many people as they could from the other tribe. So the Quran came to say, no, a person is for a person, and nafs bin nafs. Right? And then it went more limited. الحر بالحر والعبد بالعبد والأنثى بالأنثى. So that people can feel that retribution will establish justice and equitable resolution of the conflict. And that's why Allah says, وَلَكُمْ فِي الْقِصَاصِ حَيَاةٌ. You have life in retribution. Okay? But we'll talk about this in few minutes. So, retribution has been prescribed for you in matters of the murdered, a free man for a free man, and a servant for a servant, a female for a female. فَمَنْ عُفِيَ لَهُ مِنْ أَخِيهِ شَيْءٌ فَاتِّبَاعٌ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. If anyone is forgiven the killing that he has done or she has done, then they must follow with good ways to deal with the family of the deceased. They must deal with what is a good way? وَأَدَاءٌ إِلَيْهِ بِإِحْسَانٍ. To pay the ransom. يدفع الفدية. So, if the person gives away retribution, which would have killed the killer, then they must pay the ransom if the people did not forgive the ransom as well. Okay? وَأَدَاءٌ إِلَيْهِ بِإِحْسَانٍ. To pay it and pay it in a decent way. ذَلِكَ, which means the ransom exit, تَخْفِيفٌ مِّن رَبِّكُمْ وَرَحْمَةٌ. This is a lighter sentence, a lighter punishment, and it is mercy from Allah to allow people to ransom for what they have done. فَمَنِ اعْتَدَى بَعْدَ ذَلِكَ. He who commits aggression after the ransom, فَلَهُ عَذَابٌ أَلِيمٌ. That of course is on the day of judgment, or here by exercising retribution. Okay. Then ayah number 179, it says, وَلَكُمْ فِي الْقِصَاصِ حَيَاةٌ. In retribution, there is life. How come? How come? If you kill the killer, then two people have been killed now. So how come that killing the killer gives life to the whole community? Well, this needs somebody who's awake to pay attention, if you may. If the society takes the killing and the fidya, the ransom, for granted, that I will kill him and I will pay his ransom, then more lives will be gone in vain. But if you apply retribution, which is qisas, then everybody will know that his neck is on the line if he kills anybody. So the society should make always a judgment. Like sometimes the judge may not accept the ransom. If he sees that murder has become phenomenal in the society and nobody is heeding the ransom means nothing, people are rich and they are willing to kill and pay, then the judge may refuse the family of the deceased to take ransom instead of killing the killer. So whichever would make people heed the consequences should be used. If people are decent and the killed his family accepts the ransom, people should pay the ransom and the murder will finish. That's Hayah. Okay? And if people kill the killer by retribution, that will become a deterrent and this will protect the lives of other people. So in both ways there is Hayah, there is life, but it depends on the situation in the community or in the village or the country. وَلَكُمْ فِي الْقِصَاصِ حَيَاةٌ يَا أُولِي الْأَلْبَابِ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. In retribution, there is life for you, O people who are mindful and reflective, so that you may become pious, you may become righteous in the eyes of Allah. Then ayah number 180, and this may be our last. Ayah number 180, كُتِبَ عَلَيْكُمْ إِذَا حَضَرَ أَحَدَكُمُ الْمَوْتِ إِن تَرَكَ خَيْرًا الْوَصِيَّةِ لِلْوَالِدَيْنِ وَالْأَقْرَبِينَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ حَقًّا عَلَى الْمُتَّقِينَ. It has been prescribed for you that if anyone is shadowed by death or covered by death or is dying, that if he leaves any money or wealth, that he must write his will so that he can secure money for his parents, for the relatives, in and according to the norm. This ayah, we are told that it has been abrogated by the ayat of inheritance, because inheritance has been prescribed in details in Surah An-Nisa, so this ayah is abrogated. Some others who refuse the principle of abrogation or naskh in the Quran, they say no, this ayah is still needed for people who live outside of the Muslim society. Like if you have wealth here and you do not write who gets how much, the state will manage your estate. They will manage your inheritance if it reaches a certain level, of course. Otherwise, they leave it for the family. But they leave it for the family means for your wife and dependent children. But your parents could be excluded while they have right in Islam. So if you live in a non-Muslim society and you want to secure that your inheritance will go to your real heirs according to Islamic law, you must write your will distributing everything according to Sharia. Is this clear? Okay. And then it goes on to say, حَقًّا عَلَى الْمُتَّقِينَ. This is the right thing to do for those who are pious and God-fearing. فَمَنْ بَدَّلَهُ بَعْدَمَا سَمِعَهُ فَإِنَّمَا إِثْمُهُ عَلَى الَّذِينَ يُبَدِّلُونَ. Anyone who changes the will after he knows what the will is about, then the sinfulness of changing the will is on him who changes the will. In those days, people who would make a will, they were not all literate to read and write and sign and keep papers. Very few people do that in those days, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, if you heard the will of somebody, keep it as is, don't change it. Okay? Unless he willed something where it shouldn't go from a Sharia standpoint, then you must go to a scholar, explain the situation even before you disperse the will as is. Okay? And then فَمَنْ خَافَ مِنْ مُوصٍ جَنَفًا أَوْ إِثْمًا فَأَصْلَحَ بَيْنَهُمْ فَلَا إِثْمَ عَلَيْهِ. If you know somebody is dying and he is writing his will, and because he is angry with one of his children or his relatives, he says, I am barring him from inheritance. You can't do that. So the Quran is saying, if you witness somebody trying to do this, فَأَصْلَحَ بَيْنَهُمْ, to reconcile between the two of them, it is good. Okay? And it concludes by saying, فَأَصْلَحَ بَيْنَهُمْ فَلَا إِثْمَ عَلَيْهِ, he has nothing to be blamed for. إِنَّ اللَّهَ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ, Allah is oft forgiving, oft merciful. I think we'll stop here because the next set of ayat will be talking about fasting, which is a different subject. So we'll finish with ayah number 182, and inshallah next time we'll be with ayah number 183.